Whether you grew up with a Nintendo 64 or you've just watched a lot of retro game reviews, you'll know this tale well. Games like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie introduced innovative and charming design elements to the industry that captured an innate sense of what made 3D platforming fun, and are fondly regarded as classics 20 years onward. Fans longed for a definitive modern successor to this style of platformer, but the mainstream market would ultimately fail to fulfill this wish. However, a lone Kickstarter project appeared, and the fan response was so staggering that it would make back nearly 10 times its original crowdfunded goal. A Hat in Time. This video is going to contain major spoilers, and I believe this game is best experienced with as little prior knowledge as possible. If you're interested so far, just play it. Otherwise, let's get into it. A Hat in Time can be called a collectathon because whether you're platforming, solving puzzles, or defeating enemies, ultimately, your goal is to gather the various collectibles the game has to offer. This simple concept serves as the basis of your objective and progression, as well as being central to the gameplay itself. And actually, that pretty much works as a summary for the whole game. The story, worlds, characters, and gameplay never deviate far from this basic structure. However, this simple core concept is far from a weakness. Truly, A Hat in Time is deceptively simple, because the simplicity exists not through limitation, but as an intentional design choice by the developers. It acts as a rock-solid foundation from which developers Gears for Breakfast have spent over half a decade building upon. The appeal of Hat in Time is tricky to explain, but a lot of it is being consistently surprised and impressed by just how fun every aspect of this game is. Wherever you look at the game, you'll inevitably notice all the care and detail that has been put into all aspects of their creative process. They went to the trouble of putting in split-screen co-op on a PC game? How is that even... Oh, and they've created an entirely new character and she's lovely and you can play it with a controller and keyboard at the same time! But it isn't just surface level polish. The characters, worlds, platforming and overall gameplay experience are filled to the brim with fun ideas. Characters. The imagination that goes into building characters that feel as though they are a direct and important part of the environment really make the creativity shine in every world.
All you penguins out there know my name, DJ Grooves. She'll climb up this statue and rescue the poor puppy that has gotten stuck.
The writing is consistently fun, the voice acting is enthusiastic, and the characterization makes playing through each world ceaselessly engaging. The story of you and a British girl with a mustache collecting timepieces is lighthearted and charming.
We smash them together into mush and put their remains in a jar.
Her crude motivation to beat up bad guys is expressed in obvious ways through direct confrontation, as well as various graffiti she leaves around Mafia Town. There is an assortment of minor characters unique to each world, and my personal favourite character is Snatcher from Subcon Forest, a delightfully nefarious shadow being whose sole contracts you must fulfill while exploring the eerie forest floor. The thought and creativity put towards the characterization in A Hat in Time is delightfully refreshing. No one character has too much backstory or complexity. As becomes a pattern in this game's design, characters are simple, but there is a great depth in their presentation. There are countless unique lines of dialogue spread amongst a variety of major and minor characters, a vast portion of which are voice acted. In the game, you can acquire equipable badges that act as secondary abilities. The final and most expensive of which is one called the Mumble Pin. It wasn't until I finally saved up enough to purchase it that I realised it actually changed all significant dialogue in the game to be reminiscent of the old Banjo character style, meaning they had all the voice actors record special takes just to build this bonus feature for the fans. It just goes to show the extent to which this game will make its characters a fun and welcome feature of each world. Worlds. Each world is not just starkly unique, but brimming with character themselves, and each level or objective is designed with a specific purpose in mind. Okay, so a collectible mission in the starting world may seem very standard, right? Until you find yourself ignoring the objective to go explore the map before accidentally stumbling upon the collectibles yourself. For example, in Subcon Forest, multiple smaller collecting missions occur across the map, and are used to expand how much of the world you can explore. It's like climbing tall buildings in every Assassin's Creed game, except actually fun. Okay, just kidding, I love the first few Assassin's Creed games, but some objectives in that game can feel more tedious than fun. The worlds themselves are filled to the brim with creative design elements. Each world is completely dissimilar from many games of our time in that the environments themselves play a core role in the gameplay experience. Exploration of each world is a natural part of your progression in this game and are frequently tied to certain objectives. Naturally, maps in video games don't go on forever, and commonly developers will wall off areas with physical barriers. Sometimes they're in annoying places or can make the area feel restrictive, but in A Hat in Time, the confines of each world are hardly something you consider. In Battle of the Birds, the map is either a speeding train, a production studio, or buildings, and in Subcon Forest, it's a visible wall stretching the perimeter of the forest. But rather than feeling restrictive, it's very easy to just accept that that's all there is and go back to explore some new part of the map, find a timepiece, or attempt whatever platforming puzzles you can find around you. Platforming. Now, as I'm writing this, I'm noticing that I'm talking about this game a lot like it's Mega Man X in Aaron Hansard's Sequelitis. I'm going to cover something Aaron did, and that's the game design concept I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, which is teaching your player how to play the game through your level design rather than hampering gameplay with tutorials and such. Okay, so in the beginning of the game, you are placed in probably the most linear area on the entire map, a single hallway in which your only option is forward. Doing so, you come across a kid like yourself who beats up some mafia men, basically explaining the whole plot of this world in about 5 seconds. You follow her and come across a diverting pathway in which you are showed that you can collect these green things. Just past here, there is a safe which can be unlocked by finding 3 nearby tickets for which you get a reward. Here, you are shown that solving particular puzzles will reward you with special collectibles, and the rest of this level is teaching you your general movement abilities with an easy combat lesson at the end. This opening objective serves as an excellent way to teach the player the mechanics of the game, and shows just how much thought the developers put into their level design. Of course, you're free to explore the whole map if you so desired and follow Mustache Girl whenever you choose to, as I did on my first playthrough. But if you just follow the prompts, you're taught everything you need to know about all your basic abilities. As a side note, notice the way Hat Kid turns into her runs, reminiscent of any other beloved platformers you know of? Anyway, this level of attention towards the level design of the platforming isn't just limited to the first level either, as this approach towards teaching players about new mechanics remains consistent throughout the game. For example, take Alpine Skyline, whose levels are more so just extensions of the map itself as opposed to actual separate levels. One of the sections is a giant lava cake, and upon entering the area, you find yourself in an area that's pretty standard. Health, basic enemies, and a falling and rising platform that you need to use in order to continue. And throughout the rest of the climb, this new concept is eased into the platforming challenge that it will become as you progress. This level offers you all the information you need to learn through thoughtful game design, and it makes it all the more satisfying when you overcome the challenge. There's even a bonus area to beat if you're daring enough, as an extra challenge for those who might be particularly good at the game. Gameplay. So yeah, obviously by now it's pretty clear that Gears for Breakfast knows how to make a fun game. But what's great is just how far the scope of that really is. For example, in a game like this, you should get better at the game and collect things in order to progress. Sure, a player can just beat each level and eventually win the game, but you're encouraged to explore and collect yarn in order to unlock new hats, something necessary for progression as it unlocks new abilities. It's basically the best Easter egg hunt ever, except in video game form. Finally, if you're really into the game and collecting everything, you have both Rift tokens and relics to collect. They're purely cosmetic, but they come in the form of cute little outfits, new colors, and decorations for your spaceship. You also earn new items from the Time Rift levels designed to test your platforming abilities. I was actually confused by the chance minigames at first, but I came to really enjoy hoping for a cool rare hat and thought it was nice that you get something new no matter what. I really enjoy the rewards in A Hat in Time, and it really does reward players who put in that extra time and effort to collect and explore throughout the game. Just as there are rewards for players of different skill levels, there is freedom for those with differing levels of patience. Typically, any given level or objective in the entirety of this game seldom lasts more than several minutes at a time if you're just blazing through, and yet, time limits are non-existent in this game, except for when they're expressly necessary. In other words, your freedom to choose what to do, when you do it, and how long you take are allowed as much as possible, while leaving in enough linear structure for the sake of sensible progression. This game is built from the ground up to be as fun as possible from whichever angle you come at it with, and that care for gameplay shows throughout every single level, of which I wouldn't consider a single one bad. Even the missions I enjoyed less than others were still fun levels. There are so few games today that are able to actually consistently achieve that. Some criticism. The characters and worlds in A Hat in Time remind me of the appeal Toby Fox's Undertale had in its own, and with that in mind, I'd like if there was a bit more substance to the actual story itself. The simple nature of the story fits the nature of the game, of course, but Gears for Breakfast has clearly shown that they can bring worlds and characters to life, and I would love for some of the characters you encounter to affect the overall experience in some ways. For example, Mustache Girl wears what appears to be a rift token around her neck, something you collect to exchange for items. I imagine a feature where you could exchange your currency with her to acquire tokens to then spend on getting new items. She could remain as someone you can purchase items from, because once you've beaten the game, you may collect an abundance of useless currency, while at the same time, the game has no more tokens for you to get the rarer items. As well as that, when I made enemies with Mustache Girl, I wondered what the next encounter could be, then realized there wasn't one until the end of the game. It really makes me wish for more of a story in some form. The writing is clearly charming, and I just wish there was more of it. However, I also understand that diverting from your simple core concept could hamper the experience, but I have faith that the developers are more than capable. That's basically all I can reasonably think of to criticize. Some more facial animation would be nice, but what we have is cute, and I think nailing the simplistic style is better than failing in a more ambitious one. So with that in mind, all I really want is more of what we have. A Hat in Time has taken the simplistic concepts with the creative execution of Banjo-Kazooie and turned it up to 11, with original ideas and an absurd level of time and care put into so many aspects of the development. It's such an accessible, simple game to understand, yet it has such an incomparable density of content. I think there's still potential to develop this gameplay and universe further, but if this is all there is, it deserves to be remembered as not just an achievement of the platforming genre, but as an excellent example of what thoughtful game design and an absolute buttload of creativity is capable of. I found it quite hard to put my thoughts into words, because honestly, this is all quite new to me. If anyone from the dev team might be watching, I'm not a game reviewer. I've never even owned a Nintendo 64. There's no obligation or childhood nostalgia behind this review. You've just done such an amazing job that I can't help but feel inspired to talk about it. And if it makes up for me using your copyrighted music, I'll be sure to buy your soundtrack too. Which reminds me, as of the release of this video, it's currently the Steam Summer Sale, and this game is an absolute bargain. Speaking of which, I see there's some DLC they did as well. I'm guessing they probably just added a new mode or some bonus levels or whatever.